get guns, forget me education. Woman up. I'm gonna get guns, forget me education. Woman under me only occupation. Come to me and meditate. Please excuse me, but boom, my head very bad, my head very bad. My head very rash, my head very rash. You have sunset in that cherry gas. I did very fast. Too slow, no, I'm very fast. Very, very fast. Some people they don't like me. I'm ashamed to that. I'm higher than the height with no strings attached. I give that on me heart and she flinging it back. Keep flinging it back. When them send me, I tell them, oh, that is my medication. My medication. Oh, that is my medication. That's my medication. I is not the only patient. I is the only patient. I don't list my medication. Please excuse me, but boom, my head very bad. My head very bad. My head very rash. My head very rash. You have sunset in that cherry glass. I did very fast. Too slow, no, I'm very fast. Very, very fast. Boom. Some people they don't like me. I drink to that. I'm higher than that kite with no strings attached. I give that on my heart and she fling it back. Keep flinging it back. My head gonna have me medication. I'm gonna get guns, forget me education. Woman under me only occupation. Come to me and meditate. I said,
hey, good evening, good afternoon. How about you say it? It's after 4 here in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm not sure how you say it, but anyhow, I guess it's still afternoon at 4 o'clock, right? Yeah. But anyhow, welcome to Fact Friday. And today I want to talk to you guys about the home buying and selling process from start to finish. All right. Buying a home is one of the biggest moves most of us will make in our lifetime. And if you don't understand the process, then it becomes very stressful. But if you do, it can become simple. You can make it strategic, and it can be a little less stress, lot less stress, I should say, actually. Not completely stress-free because, no, things pop up all along the way that can maybe cause some stress, but you'll still be in control because you're aware of the process, okay? So let's start with the home buying process. When you're buying a home, where should you start and where do you go along the way? The first thing is you want to get clear on your goals. Be completely clear on your goals. Why are you buying a home? The timeline, you want to do now versus later. Stuff like your lifestyle needs. What do you need? Do you want to be close to work, close to kids' school? Do you want to commute a lot? You want shorter commute? Those are things you have to understand because keep in mind, you're going to be in this home for a long time. It wouldn't be like renting. We'll be like, okay, next year we'll rent somewhere. This is a little bit bigger commitment. Because one time my wife and I, we sold a home. And one of the reasons why we sold is because everything was happening a good distance from where we lived. We lived in Cordova, and everything was either happening in the East Memphis or downtown. So it was a lot of driving, a lot of getting up earlier than we wanted to. Kids had to get up earlier. So what we did was we moved. We moved closer to where everything is happening, but we still find a home that fits our needs and cut down on a lot of those other things, long commute, which again can also help with car maintenance, reduce your car maintenance costs. You'll have to change oil less, buy tires less. So those things come into play as well. Not as big probably for you, but you do want to keep in mind your lifestyle needs. Okay. So the whole thing, you don't just look at a house, you want to build a plan so you know exactly why you want to move. The next step you want to do is get pre-approved. Get pre-approved, go to your lender, your preferred lender, and get pre-approved. Here's something to keep in mind when it comes to pre-approval. The lender, when they pre-approve you, is going to tell you the most money they will lend you, in terms of total money, but also monthly payment. That's what the lender will do for you. Okay. Now, the thing you have to do is, even after the lender tell you that, you need to sit down and come up with your own budget. You need to sit down and budget. How much do I want to pay a month for a home? That is very important, apart from what the lender says they will allow you to do. Because if lenders say, hey, we can lend you $500,000 and your payment's going to be $5,000. Let's just use the example. But you be like, well, we don't want to pay a $5,000 home. So you still have to buy within your own budget. The most lender will lend you is this, but you still have to pick how much do you want to pay. You and your family want to pay monthly, so you can be comfortable. That way you can actually live in your house and still enjoy other things other than paying a house note. Okay, so your money budget is really important. The other thing is the type of loan that you choose. There are three basic loans that the average person will use to buy a home: FHA, VA, and conventional. VA is only for veterans. So if you're not a veteran, or if you're not currently in the military, VA does not apply to you. The other two, FHA and conventional, are the ones that you will be used. Okay, so just there's more to those there, more to learn about the loan types, which one works best for you in terms of money down and so forth, that you will have to figure out. But again, get pre-approved and fix your budget. Again, keep this in mind. We're not talking about the budget of what the bank said they will lend you. We're talking about you sitting down, look at your numbers and decide, okay, this is how much we want to pay a month, and find a home based on the things we talked about first, that would fit within that budget, that will make you, that way you'll be comfortable in your home and not be struggling to pay your mortgage. That's not good. Okay. Once you do that, then you want to build your home search. Okay. You want to decide things that you must have, things that are nice to have. This is really, really important, because the more things you put on your list of must-haves, the less options you will have. Because there's some things in your mind you might think is a must-have, when in truth and in fact, those things later on, after you move in the house, you can make changes. Okay, if it does not involve breaking down a wall, but it might involve maybe renovating a bathroom, changing some tiles, maybe paint, stuff like that. So keep those things in mind when you decide that you must have something compared to, I would like to have it. For example, 2-car garage. If you must have a 2-car garage, then you might stick with, listen, I have to have a 2-car because we need to park both of our cars inside the home. We feel more safer when we can drive in our house. That's a whole different thing. But you look at your kitchen, for example, and you say, listen, our kitchen have to have an island. What if there's space enough in the kitchen to, once you move in, you put an island in the kitchen? That might be an option where the house might have everything else you want, but it just doesn't have that island. So always keep that in mind. Try to make sure that these things that you say must have are really, really must haves, because a lot of time they can be nice to haves or things we can do later on. Okay. So again, where you want to live, figure out that, narrow down your area as much as possible. That way you're not all over the place, because from the first thing we talk about, when you get down there, you'll have a pretty good idea of where you want to live compared to everything else. Schools. For example, let's say you want your kids to go to Colleyville schools, then there's a great chance you're going to move to Colleyville, or, close. You have to move at least within an area that your child will be allowed to go to that particular school district. Okay. And this would help a lot of these things. When you narrow down your home search, it will help you it will prevent you from wasting a lot of time looking at homes that definitely is not going to work for you. Because if you decide to keep one of your kids to go to school in Colleyville, while looking at houses close to downtown, your kids probably can't go to Colleyville school. I don't know that. I'm just saying, but just keep that in mind. And then after we do that, then we're going to tour homes. Do it in person, do it virtually. If at all you can do it in person, that's the best, because you want to walk in that house and just imagine walking in the house every day. Does this feel, it's one of those things when you walk in a home, sometimes you can just tell this is the one. It just gives you that vibe. Every home we've ever bought, that we got that vibe. It was like, yeah, this is it. Even if it was the first one, the second one, the third, doesn't matter. When we walk in that one, we're like, yeah, this is it. We might go look at another one just to make sure, but then you go back to, yeah, it's that one right over there. That's the one we want. But at the same time, you also want to compare options, because some homes, one might have a bunch of things you want. The other one have a bunch of things you want, but none of them have all the things you want. Then you'll have to decide, okay, of these things that each one has, which ones are we okay with giving up, or maybe making changes to the home later on to get. So those are things that that you have to look at. Next thing is you once you find a home you like, you make an offer. And this is where a really good agent is going to help you tremendously. You have to look at things like your pricing strategy, earnest money, terms and contingencies. Now, all those things mean something totally different. For example, I always believe that the best price doesn't mean the best deal. So, for example, let's say the house is listed at $250,000. You have all the money you need for down payment. You don't have a lot of closing costs. You might need some help from the seller to help with closing costs. Well, that can be a pricing strategy, because instead of asking the seller to drop their home 20, whatever numbers, thousands of dollars, you might give the seller more closer to the list and then ask the seller to help you with the closing costs. From where the seller is concerned, he's selling the home for the same amount. But in this case, if you're going to ask him to take all this down and still want closing costs, that might not work. That way, a good agent will sit down with you and explain to you how all these things really work. You want to make sure there's things like appraisal contingencies, inspection contingencies. Inspection is really, really important. When you put all the stuff in your contract, you don't want to ever buy a home without getting an inspection, ever. The other thing is earnest money. How much earnest money you want to put down? I think you should put down at least 1%. If you can put more, because that would definitely make your offer much stronger, because you're showing, hey, I'm bringing something to the table, bringing a lot to the table. Because keep in mind, when a home go on the contract, two things are happening. The seller is saying, okay, based on everything you've given me, I'm going to take my house off the market. I'm not going to let anybody else put an offer. Well, they can, but I'm not going to take another offer. So I'm putting up my house. Now it's up to you. What are you going to put up? If you're buying a $400,000 house and you want to put $500 for earnest money, that makes no sense. No seller should accept that. I would tell myself, don't accept that. That's crazy. You got to come up. You got to put some skin in the game. Put some real skin in the game that would make you do things to make sure that the home is closed, other than holding up somebody and then also be like, I don't want it. But that's a whole legal issue. There's a lot of things can happen where that's concerned. But good earnest money can help your offer as well. Definitely can. Once you and the seller agree and you on everything, and now you're under contract, there's some other things that are going to happen here now. If you have an inspection contingency, you're going to get a chance to go and pay an inspector to inspect the home. They'll give you a list of all the things that they have inspected, some good, some bad, some in between. And then you'll get a chance to then ask the seller to do what we call a repair or replace. You and the seller have a chance to go back and forth. They say like, hey, if you do these things, we can move forward. The seller might be like, hey, well, we'll do these, but we won't do these. And you and them, it's another negotiating tool. That's really all it is. But the bottom line is, even if the seller chooses not to do anything and you choose to buy the home, you're aware of any major things that might be going on with the house because you did your inspection contingency. The bank will also get the house appraised. Make sure that the price you're paying for the house appraised for at least that much or more. There's a little bit of that can go on if the home doesn't appraise and so forth. Conversation for another time. But again, your agent is somebody that can truly explain that proper to you. And at that point, also, there's a bunch of loan processing stuff that's going to be going on. Your bank is going to get in touch with you. They're going to ask you for information. There's documents you'll have to sign so that things can keep moving forward. There'll be a period of downtime where you hear like there's not a whole lot going on. but doesn't mean nothing's going on. It just means that at this point, you've done what you need to do. No need anything from you. But the one thing during this time, anytime the bank asks you or your agent asks you for anything, you always want to try and be as quick as possible. Make sure you get it to them as quick as possible, because that can definitely hold up. That can definitely hold up your loan, prevent your loan from close. And you don't want to be the person, you don't want to be the reason why your loan doesn't close, because then that earnest money can come into play. Another conversation that your agent, again, will have with you, so you understand what's going on. They come to a point when after this, if you and the seller had actually had agreed to fix some things, you'll get a chance to go back and do an inspection to make sure all those things will fix. Okay, then they come to the point where they say the loan is clear to close, which means all the processing for the loan is completed, and you can go and finish the loan up. Okay, but before you do that, we do what we call, there's some final steps that you do. You do a final walkthrough where we'll go back to the house, or you and the agent will go back to the house, and you just walk through, make sure those things that were supposed to be fixed had been fixed. And also you want to make sure the house is in as good or better condition than when you saw it and started all this whole process. You want to make sure that that is the case, because until you sign for that home and money is transferred, that home does not belong to you. And I always tell them, I try to advise my clients also that if at all possible, we can do the final walkthrough on the way to closing. Because just to make sure, especially if there was an event like the previous night, there was a storm or whatever, just even if you're not going to go walk the home, maybe in the morning of, just drive by the home just to make sure the home is still standing. There was not a fire at the home, especially if it was a vacant home where no one was living there. And even if there was somebody living there, you definitely want to go to a walkthrough, because the seller should have all their stuff out of the house, so you can do a real final walkthrough to see, because once they move that couch, what's behind that couch? Is a big old hole in the back of the couch, or that carpet that was sitting on the floor all this time. Once they move that carpet, what's under there? So you want to make sure you do a final walkthrough, if nothing else, to empty house. Okay. Do all that, everything is good, then we move to closing day. And that's the day when you will get really, really nervous, because you're like, oh Lord, am I going to really buy this house? That is the case, but on that day, you'll sign all the documents. Depend on how your bank does it. There's a lot of documents to sign, or there might be a lot. Either way, there's a lot to sign, but it's okay. It's part of the process, no way to get around it. Some things you might get electronically from your bank that you might sign before you even go to closing. But at the closing table, you will sign you'll sign a lot more documents as well. Now, after you sign, that doesn't mean you're going to get a key right then and there. I mean, you're probably not going to, because there's some things that have to happen after you sign, because the seller also has to sign. And once you sign and the seller sign, then if both of you close at different attorneys' offices, then they're going to swap paperwork. They're going to make sure that the buyer side, on behalf of the bank, is going to make sure that the seller side did all their paperwork right, so that the bank has all the legal rights and stuff to the home, should that come into play later on. And the seller side going to make sure that all the things are done right, so that the seller can get their money and so forth and so forth. So there's some things that happen. When they finish, both parties finish those, and then the bank get a chance to look at the documents, and bank say everything's good, then the bank will then give the funding, what they call a funding authorization, where your attorney or closing office will then send funds to the seller side. Once the funds have been sent from your office where you sign over to the seller side, and there is proof that the money has hit the seller's side, attorney, escrow account, whatever it is, at that point, the deal is completed. The seller doesn't have to have the money in their hand to be completed. The attorney or the closing office that they use have to have the money in their account. That's where the transaction is completed. And at that point, you get the key and you're officially a homeowner. And you can now begin all the planning and stuff to move in. Well, not begin, start plan, because you should have already planned that. But you can start moving stuff into your new home. If I try not to close on Fridays at all costs, for the simple reason, if things go wrong and you're not able to get the key on Friday, then the next time you're going to be able to get a key more than likely is Monday. So if it's important that you get the key the day off and you don't have time to have a day or two to get the key, make sure you do not set your closing up on a Friday, and also let your agent know that, because Friday closings can be one of those. Okay, Monday's almost the same way too, because you have to hope that Monday morning, if the bank didn't send the documents Friday, then you got to hope they do it Monday. And then, so I like to close Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Those are three best, in my mind, those are three best days to close. But that is the process of buying a home. There's a little other things that go in between, but those are the big things that generally will happen during the time of you buying a home. It's important that you, through this process, that you have an agent that will stay on top of things for you. You should not be stressed. You should always have information you need to let you understand. You should be kept aware of what's going on. But there's always a way to let you know, hey, this is a bump, but we're gonna be okay. We're gonna be okay. Sometimes you might have to change closing, might have to extend closing. There are times when you get to close sooner. So, but either way, your agent should be able to keep you abreast and keep you well informed of what's going on, so you can feel like, okay, this is gonna work. All right. So that is the process of buying a home, and I'm gonna do the process of selling another time. I was gonna do it as well today, but I think I'm just gonna set up that for another session where I can actually give you time. Give it the right time, because selling a home is a big deal. It is a big deal, just as buying a home is a big deal. I don't think anyone is a bigger deal, because the person buying a home, that's the most important thing to them, and the person selling the home, most important thing to them. And there are times when you do both, and that can become complicated sometimes. There's ways to do it to try and make it as less complicated as possible. But it can be that can be a very stressful one. So we'll also deal with that on another episode of Fact Friday, to let you know what's the process like if I'm selling my home and I'm buying a home at the same time. It happens every day. It happens every day. So not that it can't be done. It's being done every day. You just have to be aware of things that can go wrong and ways to make sure that it works out. It works out for you. All right. Hey, I think that's all I have on the process of buying a home. So again, you want to have your what do you call a strategy session, where you just decide on why are you buying? What's the reason why? Set clear goals. And the next step is get pre-approved. Let the bank tell you how much, and then you set your budget, how much you want to spend. Build a home search. Decide your must-haves and stuff like that. You tour the homes, compare stuff as you go through the home. You make offers. A great offer does not mean only price. There's a lot of other things that can protect you other than just the price of the home. Next thing, you go on the contract. You'll have all the contingencies will then take place. You'll get to do a final walkthrough, you get to close, and then you become a homeowner. All right. Hey, listen, if you're seeing this and you're thinking of buying a home, I would love to talk to you about it, show you how this process works for you individually, and help make the process as simple, strategic, and stress-free for you. All right. This is Keno Spring, the Vinci Realtor. Give me a call. Look forward to working with you. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and I will see you for next Friday for Fact Friday. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.